Welcome to another episode of You Are Here. Joining me today is, once again, Mark McCrite. How you doing, Mark?
Doing well.
Right on. It's been a while. Today we're going to talk about the Archive series. The Archive series is comprised of 14 discs. That's 13 audio CDs and 1 DVD. This multi-disc series contains recordings of all eras from deep within the Kevin Gilbert audio vault. Demos, unreleased tracks, alternate mixes, live soundboard recordings, studio rehearsal sessions, and more. The highest quality audio source was used for each title. However, some recordings are presented in raw form and do exist for the true completist. We started off with NRG Live at Keystone Palo Alto in 1982, 9 tracks with a running time of 46 minutes. Now, this disc does feature the lowest quality audio fidelity in the series. It was recorded with a boombox and a stereo microphone. However, I feel this is a very important time capsule piece in the Kevin Gilbert universe, as it's the only known recording of NRG Live in concert. Mark, what did you think about that release?
Well, it was really cool because the album, the NRG vinyl release, and some of the other studio tracks that we've heard. There's just such a different energy about things that are in the studio versus things that are live. And it was really cool to hear these songs kind of brought to life with, interaction between the musicians and all of that kind of stuff. So I really liked it. And I thought that, I'm I'm really familiar with the boombox recording kind of thing because, that's what you did back then. And I thought it sounded surprisingly good for what it was. I really enjoyed taking a listen to it, and I thought I kind of went through before we got together. I went through and kind of picked out my couple of favorite tracks,
Mhm.
and so it's funny. I thought that I really liked Schizophrenia. I thought that was great. Um, and the only reason that I picked that one above my favorite track, which is When Strangers Part, is because I thought the mix wasn't quite together there. I
Mm.
mean, you're at the mercy of whatever the sound man did live, but
Right.
it was just the energy and the flow of a live performance like that was really cool to hear for that era of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And another good thing in this recording is that we were able to hear some songs that weren't on the NRG album, like Crooked Mile, Tongue in Cheek, City on the Hill,
Hmm.
songs that had never come to full fruition in the studio. So that was pretty good that we got to hear that.
Yeah, I liked City on the Hill, and we'll talk about that when we get to the demos.
Oh yeah. And and the cool thing about this set, Jason Hubbard from NRG provided the liner notes. Now, he didn't even know that this recording existed. We were very fortunate that he was able to share his thoughts from this performance from over 40 years ago. On to number 2, volume 2, and that was somewhat NRG related also, and it was Beer Jam 2. 8 tracks, 53 minutes. It's NRG's Kevin Gilbert and Mickey Sori running through some original NRG songs, some cover songs, and most importantly, just having a good time and jamming. Mark, your thoughts?
This is one of my favorite ones. I had actually heard this a long time ago, and it was really cool to like see it come to life and really share it with everyone. But uh, for me, it reminds me a lot of like the KLOS Mark and Brian when Kevin and Mark hosted the Mark and Brian show,
Mhm.
and a little bit of like is it the Rav4 interview? What was there was an interview that he did
Mhm.
late in his career, and it's like you feel like you're hanging out with them in the room. It's so casual. You're just like a fly on the wall,
Yeah.
and it really kind of gave you a feel for what his personality was and that kind of stuff. And so I really love that. And it was interesting to kind of see how the night evolved. And I thought that my favorite tracks. My favorite little piece of it is just when he does the John Wetton impersonation doing the UK tracks, Rendezvous 602. I'm a UK Uber fan, and so that one was really cool. Also, of course, Firth the Fifth. It was great to hear him play that, but it was amazing because you could tell all of these things were completely off the top of his head and just like they were just a part of him. And, I really enjoyed hearing that. And then the other standout track was Mephisto's Tarantella.
I
I
was gonna
thought that
say
was,
and that ends the jam there, and
yeah.
unfortunately it ends towards the end of the song. We don't get the complete version of it, but we get enough to see, and hear how that was.
Well, it was
And
just cool with the two of them and the way that they locked in. And, it was, like I said, this is one of my favorites. So I could talk about this one for a long time.
yeah, you could go track by track and just kind of like jump in and just go wild with it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. That's we can play a little bit of let's see, City on the Hill. Let's let people hear what this was about. This is Mick Sorey and Kevin Gilbert. Beer Jam 2.
You'll remember. You'll remember it. Slow it down. I'll never get it out. Freedom for all who make it their own. I know what you need. A shining.
Cool to hear the mature Kevin voice with the older material. I always love that.
Well, and because he messed with his voice in the studio in the 80s a lot of times where he, pitched up or
Right.
just, used different effects on it. So, yeah, you're right. It is good to hear that. Volume 3, Caviar, demos, outtakes, and alternate mixes. Yeah, you and I are both cheering
Caviar
on
is my favorite Kevin project. So yeah.
Yeah, no, this one was this is one of my top 3 of the whole series, and I have no favorite on top, but I do have a top 3, and at the end I'll reveal what those are, but or along the way. It's 13 tracks at 57 minutes, and they are all studio quality. Now, I was in touch with everyone from Caviar: Brian, Paul, Susie, David, Nick. It was fun getting their recollections on some of these demos and alternate mixes. The highlights for me on this disc are the 2 cartoon mix versions of Indian Burn.
I was
And
gonna say that. That's funny.
well, the thing is, I'm gonna stop down and say the weird thing about this is I've been given the gift of Kevin's catalog to go through it and decipher it and try to make heads or tail of it. And there have been recordings in every format you can think of, all the way down from horrible cassette quality all the way up to the best studio quality. Now, for years upon years, there was this horribly beat up cassette tape that had a version of Indian Burn cartoon mix, and I could decipher things out of there, but it was just so poorly recorded, or it was kept in bad condition. So as I was going through the catalog again and again, and researching things, I found a DAT that had never been transferred because it was broken. Oddly enough, Caviar broken.
Yeah.
So I found a repair shop, and I sent it to the guy, and he repaired it and he transferred it. And it was like heaven opened again for me, because I heard things that I had never heard before. And this was just a few years ago. This was probably in 2021.
And that's what everyone else's experience is with this whole archive series.
Yeah.
I want to point out.
Yeah, no, that's great.
It's like a gift,
And it's wonderful for me to be able to like talk about this stuff finally, because around this time that I found this recording, or about maybe 2 years after that, and we can tell the world, you and I had a lost weekend, and you traveled out to see me, and we spent about 4 days eating, drinking, and just going. I mean, I don't know. We were just up to here with Kevin Gilbert music and related materials. We were trying to figure out some mysteries, and we did uncover some stuff with the help of you. We kind of put two heads together and figured out a few things. But you went through the archive series. I showed you all the artwork. I showed you all the recordings. We listened to a bunch of it. So you had a different approach to it, and so now, going back 2 years now, sitting there receiving all these now as actual discs, how is it? How is it getting it with the packaging, with the artwork,
It's
and
awesome. I mean, you know, his handwriting and all of that kind of stuff. And I know that a lot of the stuff is just like right out of his notes and what have you, and the way that you put them together and curated them. I thought it was really cool. And yeah, I mean, it's amazing, like having them all in this. I actually considered like having them here, you know, but it's, I figured
yeah.
you have them there, or the people watching this probably have it. But yeah, it's really been amazing, and it's just nice to have this curated set of all of these kind of key outtakes that aren't quite, you know, you don't want to put them on like a canon release, but they're worthy of being heard.
Right, and and that's a good point, because we did stress that these aren't recognized in the Kevin Gilbert catalog, the proper catalog. So
Right.
this isn't a part of Thud. This isn't a part of Shaming of the True. Not even Nuts and Bolts or anything like that. These stand as its own. These are a gift to the fans, and it's just, there's, like we said, there's some important things that we feel in Kevin Gilbert's world, his musical world, that you need to hear, and we're fortunate that we're able to hear this. So having said all that, with all that history and everything like that, let's go to one of the tracks. Let's hear the first part of Indian Burn Cartoon Mix version 1.
Return with us now. Return with us now. Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear. Me and my pals just got off that boat 'cause we didn't like the gin and we wanted to vote. And we're your new neighbors and we're here to stay. We'd like to make nice in a neighborly way. I've got this idea, we're gonna be friends. How soon and how long? Well, that all depends on how long it takes to obtain all we need. We got things to build, we got mouths to feed. So as long as you stay on your side of the street, we'll like all your people, they'll think it's your needs.
All right, a little bit of the cartoon mix, and mix number 2 has different vocals and different sound effects coming in and out, so they are very different.
It's fun because this one, it's like in a way the differences are kind of subtle. I mean, it's the same tracks and what have you, but they just, to me, they're, I mean, for the uber fan of Caviar, they're just they're really cool. They have a different vibe, and I guess about this release in general, and about Caviar in general. You talked about the Lost Weekend kind of thing, and
Mhm.
it's like one thing that really blew my mind during that whole thing was kind of just understanding how central the Tuesday Music Club was to many of Kevin's projects, and how Caviar kind of grew out of that.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting, and hearing some of that stuff. And then my other standout track was Cup of Love, just because it didn't end up, you know, going into any of the final mixes and what have you.
Mhm.
And like Single and like some of the other tracks, it has just such an insane groove.
Yeah, and as you were saying, when we had our Lost Weekend there, you were fortunate because were able to hear some Tuesday Music Club tracks. You were able to hear virtually a little from every part of Kevin's,
Yeah.
career. So it made sense how we put things together and how things were formulated. So yeah, that was,
And it makes sense that the groove is so central to Caviar, because it was so, Brian McLeod was so much at the heart of it.
yes, what a groove. And I thought it was essential that we include Brian McLeod's demo of Broken.
Yeah.
That way it shows some of his wit and humor. I'm glad that he offered that up. Okay, now that brings us to Volume 4, which is Thud Acoustic. With 6 tracks and a running time of 27 minutes, this is the shortest in the collection. but I feel it's very important as it features the seeds of an acoustic version of Thud that Kevin had been toying around with. Two highlights for me would be The Tears of Audrey and Waiting. Those two were recorded during the era when it was just Nick and Kevin, describing themselves as a two-man band.
This one, I mean, I love acoustic music and I love like playing at open mics and all of that kind of stuff. And Thud is near and dear to my heart because that was kind of the era that I was like closest to the band and what have you. And so this one really, really is cool for me. And I called out Tears of Audrey as my favorite track on it as well. It's really amazing. And then the other one is the real standout was Song for a Dead Friend. It sounds I don't remember if it is, but it sounds like a live take with the live vocal.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're correct. And
and
that's
I remember A being like the final vocal with the original live vocal, and it's really cool. I mean, obviously the final vocal is amazing and it's the standard, but it was so cool just hearing it happen in the moment.
and I'm going to jump back to, this is only 27 minutes long, and the reason why I say it's essential in the series is because it completes the Thud circle. You put this alongside the 20th anniversary 3 CD set and all the original discs that were released with Thud, and it's complete now. Next up is Volume 5, Giraffe Live at Cactus Club 1989. 9 tracks, a running time of 49 minutes. It's a soundboard recording, recorded on high quality cassette. The only thing bad about that, it suffers from a tape flip. And you know as good as anybody that when you're recording a
It
show,
is what it is.
you get to that point where you're going, oh, please just song end so I can flip my tape. Oh, it didn't end. Oh, there goes the tape. You flip it, start, record. Oh, there's oh, what happened after, just, yeah. So
Yeah.
two of the songs get a little bit of clipping here and there. The end of one song, the beginning of another, because it was a tape flip. But we did get, I think is important, is Nightmares, and that was from the Night of the Creeps soundtrack. And to have Giraffe perform it and to have it captured as a soundboard is great. So let's capture a little bit of that.
That one, interestingly, was done by the Motels, right?
Martha Davis.
Oh,
solo.
Martha Davis solo. Yeah, that's
She
right.
did a solo version of that. It's on Anthology Land.
Right.
What did you think about the Live at the Cactus Club?
Oh, I mean, I loved it. Hearing Giraffe live from the soundboard, that was really amazing. Um, Unfortunately, my favorite track is Tired Old Man, and that's one of the ones that was cut.
Yeah.
But it was. I guess I'd rather have the beginning of it cut than the end of it cut. So that was
Right.
cool.
And that's going to play out later in the archive series, that all the different versions of A Tired Old Man. Kevin did this thing where he songs like Tired Old Man, Shadow Self, Goodness Gracious, he would splice up different sections of it and
Right.
mix and match. And so a big headache in my job, I mean, it's a fortunate headache, is having to go through 30 different versions of Goodness Gracious that are just very, just switched around here and there. And it sends your mind crazy because you just heard this over here and now you're
Right.
hearing it over here and it's over here again. And it gets you kind of like flipped around. So every now and again, I have to put on the original version just to cleanse my palate again and, get squared up with everything. Okay, let's go on to let's go on a Thud alternate. It's like getting a brand new studio quality version of Thud. 12 tracks, 65 minutes. My thought was to deliver an alternate version of Thud that was powerful, even though it had tracks that had less instrumentation than the final released versions.
Yeah, everything's equally polished.
Yeah, they're all studio takes, and this was very fun to do. And back in 2014, when I did the Thud 3 disc set, there was just so much that was left that could have been on a fourth disc, on a fifth
Right.
disc, on a sixth disc, and it would have just been, we would have had Thud out the ears, and it would have been too much.
I
There's
don't know
never
about that, but
I was gonna say there's never too much Thud.
right.
As far as the basic consumer and everything like that, it would have priced everything out of range, and they would have said, like, why do I need all these versions? But for us, for the ones who salivate over it, yeah, we could have gone on and on. So I had this alternate track listing put aside in my back pocket, and I was just hoping that the archive series would get off the ground, and when it did, I was like, great, it has a home. In here we get T41 with alternate bass with Dan Schwartz doing bass.
That was my top pick. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because, like I said, already it's everything feels polished. It doesn't feel like it's like sort of a collection of leftovers. And it's interesting in that, like, you get drum machine kind of stuff, like with the goodness gracious takes. You get the live take of Song for a Dead Friend, which I already talked about because I thought about the other one. That alternate bass take. I always love the long extended Joytown. The first time I heard Thud, it still had a long version of Joytown. I don't even remember which one it was, but it was,
Right.
it got cut down for the final release.
Yes.
And actually, the first time I heard Thud, Goodness Gracious was the first track. And it got switched around with When You Give Your Love to Me for the final release. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm closest to the Thud material, and it probably just kind of speaks to me more than all of the other stuff. Although I love Caviar, it's kind of,
Yes.
I feel like it's almost a guilty pleasure. But yeah, I mean, I love this. It's, I could listen to it just like I could listen to Thud.
And it's, Thud, the 3-disc set is out of print. So right now, if there are any copies left of this alternate version, that's it. That's all you're going to get. Thud is out of print everywhere. Now, I love this disc. This is another of my favorites, along with the Caviar outtakes. This is the second of 3 that are top for me in the archive series. Some of these tracks are just phenomenal to me. Cashmere, this version of it, the automated mix of it, and Waiting, the other version, mix 2. It's just all these things, or mix 1. It's just all of these things together just form a great Thud package. Now, the funny thing is, you mentioned Song for a Dead Friend. I had a different Song for a Dead Friend in there. And in the 11th hour, this was about a week before we went into mastering, I had all the artwork done. Everything was done. And I remembered something. Kevin and I used to, and you and I went over this. This is kind of going to be a rehash for you, but Kevin and I used to speak on the phone every now and again, and I would record our conversations, and Kevin was aware of it. And one of the reasons being is that we would talk about plans and ideas that I would come up with, or he would come up with marketing or whatever, what we were going to do in the future. And since we talked about so many things, it was easier for me to just jot it down afterwards once I listened to the tape. But as any two guys do, we, like you and I, we just started talking about music. We started talking about life. We started talking about everything. So now I'm actually fortunate that I do have those recordings to reflect back on. So we were at the Troubadour, the last Troubadour show that he did with Jonathan Brooke. And we were backstage, and he said, I got to give you something. I got to give you something. I said, I have no idea what you're going to give me. And he goes, I know what it is. It'll be a CDR of Thud. So he described it, blah, blah, blah. And months went by, as Kevin, was notorious for, and just kind of forgot about it. I forgot about it. And then he called me one day and said he remembered. He left a message on my machine. When we were talking on the next phone call, I asked him what it was. So for the first time ever, I'm going to replace some of these messages that Kevin and I had. So this one, we talk about Thud because I just let him know that it's out of the record store in my area said that it was out of print. So this is that conversation. So then as we're talking, I reminded him about this CDR. Okay.
Wow. So what were the other songs?
Well, wait, I listened. So then I
Okay.
heard this recording, and when he said, totally different versions of Song for a Dead Friend, that's when it clicked. I went to the CDR that he gave me, and there it was, the piano version that we have on Thud Alternate. That's the only version available. That's nowhere in Kevin's archives.
So you didn't find it in the archives. It's only on
Nothing
this
at
thing
all.
that he gave you.
Yeah.
That's great.
So that's the only existence of it. So
It's cool because, it's like when I remember Song for a Dead Friend, like the original version, I think of it as piano and vocal.
yeah.
But if you go back and listen to it, there's a lot more going on.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of instrumentation.
And then you listen to this, and like I said, it's the live take. It's very cool.
Yeah, now on that disc that I had, that CDR that I have, it's actually mastered by Bernie Grunman.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a different Joytown. It has that Joytown that you're talking about, that you're speaking of. And it has different variations of Tears of Audrey and When You Give Your Love to Me. And some of that we have heard, but there are different versions on there. Like he said, there's roughly 30 versions of Thud that have been mastered. And the versions that are in each one of them run the gamut.
That's funny because mastering's like a big deal. So
Yes, and there were
it's
so many,
amazing that he would have so many.
and the amount of mastering houses that did it,
Yeah.
just all over the valley, all over Los Angeles. It was crazy. We were talking about Thud, Kevin and I, and I mentioned hearing something in Joytown, his laugh in there when he goes, he does that little laugh in there, and he goes, "Oh, you caught my Eddie Murphy laugh." And so we were talking about things like that, about hearing incidental sounds or things, mistakes that were left in recordings throughout the history of stuff that we listen to. And so that jarred a memory for him to let me know about. So here's something that he wanted me to know.
That's funny because when I went with the band to South by Southwest, which was when it was before Thud came out, but actually on that trip, that's when John Rubin brought out the first pressings and what
Hmm.
have you, and Kevin
Yeah.
gave me one of those. Um, they after Kevin's gig, we were all walking around in Austin, and Big Star, or I mean not Big Star, but Alex Chilton was in town, and
Hmm.
Kevin ended up hanging out and like basically staying up all night partying with Alex Chilton.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. Everything all goes full circle
So,
everywhere.
and it sounds like this was after that,
Yeah.
right? So
Oh
he
yeah.
probably like got really into them.
Yeah. No, this actually this conversation was 2 days before his death.
Oh,
This one that we're listening to right here. So, but I have them from 95 through 96. So, all right. So I just wanted to take a little bit of a little breather from the archive series and give people an idea of what was actually in the archives, how we go into the archives. So I had to jump into my personal archives even there. And I've done that. Kevin gave me some recordings that and some periodicals, some just memorabilia, everything like that I've joined with the estate's archives so that we can have a better picture of everything. So,
he
um,
was really into that. You know, it's like some of the things that I had heard before the archive series came out, and you know, when Kevin was still alive, were things that he like gave to a friend of mine. It was just like, hey, I want to give this to you. You know,
yeah.
that's how like the was it some of the Gilbert
Mhm.
records they were given to people and what have you.
And he wasn't about himself. He didn't like love, I need to hear about myself, but he did collect Kevin Gilbert items. He did collect promo items. He did
Right.
have things like that. When I would take CDs to him or cassettes and show him promo items, a lot of times he would grab stuff and go, "Well, I don't have this," or "Where'd you get this from?" And so sometimes our conversations were that, "Hey, look at, I picked up extra stuff for him, or I found some CD or promos that he didn't even know about." He didn't know "O Come, O Come Emmanuel" had been
Oh, right.
released until I called him and let him know that it was on promo CD, and I read him the list, or the credits of what it said, so he was getting a kick out of that. Let's go on to the next one. We're almost done with the first half of the set here. It takes us to number 7, volume 7, which is Troy Manatee, live at the Ventura Theater. Now, it's 10 tracks with a running time of 67 minutes. It was recorded from the soundboard straight to DAT. We're used to hearing the Roxy recording, which is perfect in sound and performance. With this one, we get Toy Matinee, raw, and with warts and all, yet still an amazing band live. The bass is lacking in certain parts, but that's what a soundboard is, and that's what this archive series, that's the home for it. Any thoughts on this one?
It's funny. It's like, you know, I have my favorites. This is not one of my favorites, but what I did like about it was I thought it was really cool to hear the actual Toy Matinee core band play "We Always Come Home" and things or was it Jenny Ledge
Mhm.
without Tim Pierce guesting on guitar.
Yes, and that's
So that
another
was really
reason.
cool.
Yes. And that's what I'm saying about this archive series. It's part of that history. In the Roxy version, like you were saying, we get Tim Pierce doing that, and that's great because Tim was on the album.
It's awesome, yeah. And it's like kind of like the live take of "Song for a Dead Friend." Like you said, warts and all. It's like this is what they sounded like, and I remember seeing them live and it was great.
Well, that's going to do it for the first half. Mark, thanks for joining me. Make sure you tune in for the second half, and we will delve even deeper into the archive series. And I'll see you next time you are here.